Hello and welcome to the LFC Transfer Room stream of the day. I'm here with Lou and Dave, and we'll start things off right away. Lou, how are you doing?
Very good. Very, very good. Happy to be back on. Always good.
All right, and Dave, still buzzing from the weekend win?
I am indeed. I was actually on the post-game stream on Saturday. Was it Saturday? Sunday, which was a lot of fun as well. I've never been on a stream where I'm discussing the player rate, my own personal opinion on the player rating. So that was loads of fun. And yeah, good buzz going into the week. I'm always in a good mood when we do well on the weekend, and I thought we did particularly well on the weekend. I thought we played very, very well. So was very, very chuffed with that.
Yeah, it definitely was a solid win. I had a phone. I was at my girlfriend's brother's wedding, and I had my phone kind of like down in my lap trying to catch the game. But glad we won, and we'll move right into the news of the week. So far, it's a bit of a slow day, but we got the interesting news with Kostas Tsimikas' new deal, and I believe his contract was set to expire in 2025. So we had a little bit of wiggle room, but it seemed like we wanted to get that locked down, and now he's extended to 2027. I'll start with you, Lou. How do you feel about extending of Tsimikas' contract? You think it was just done because it was able to be get done? Didn't seem like there were too many hiccups. Do you think it's necessary? What are your thoughts overall on the contract for him?
No, keeping them. I wouldn't say it's a priority, but there's no particular downside to it. In terms of what I think of him as a player, I don't think there's many better backup left backs, so to speak, in the Prem. I mean, you could say maybe Lewis Hall in a couple of years, or I don't know, Luke Shaw to Reguilon at the moment. You know, so he's not. He's definitely not one of the best centre backs, left backs in the league. But he's in terms of having a solid backup, who's a good age. He's got a big game mentality. We saw that in the FA Cup with the winning penalty. He's a good player to have around the squad, and he's got a great attitude. From what you see, he gels really well with the team. I think it was the Van Dijk Gakpo. It was the Netherlands game, and all of them were talking at the end. And clearly, he's respected around the dressing room. I think he's on average. He get his overall stats. He's got 12 assists in 63 games for us. That's for a left back as well. I think Andy Robertson set the bar so high, but that's really good numbers for a full back to get that many assists in that many games. So he's reliable. Doesn't do quite the same job as Robbo, but he can definitely still do a job. He'd fit into most Premier League teams. So I'm personally quite happy with it. I think we could have done a lot worse.
Yeah, I agree with you. I know that Kev is a big anti-advocate of Tsimikas on this channel, but I think it's hard to get a good run of form unless you're playing regularly. And I think that his mistakes and that kind of stuff, it's oftentimes where he hasn't played for weeks or months and then gets thrown in and makes a hiccup here or there. But I think when he's been put in for longer stretches, when Robo's been out, he's done pretty well. So yeah, I'm same
definitely.
opinion of you. Yeah, he contract extension there. It's a good deputy and kind of solves the short-term issue if there was any, and leaves room.
Robbo runs so much and he uses so much energy. It'd be ridiculous to just expect him to play every single game. So having someone as good as Tsimikas who can come in and do a similar job, there's no downside personally.
What are your thoughts on this situation, Dave?
First of all, I just want to say to James, because I saw you pop up his question on there you go. I'd like to say yes, but no, it was the legend known as Kev who predicted that. So, yeah, unfortunately not. It wasn't me. But regarding Tsimikas, I mean, yeah, there's no downside. I really like the guy. Things about squad harmony is all about squad balance. This is what you need. So you've always going to have, for example, at left back, one who is the main person and one who is going to be the backup. And Kostas has been an absolutely wonderful backup and servant to the club so far. But I think what's even more important, and Lou, tapped into this, is that he's very well respected within the dressing room. Everybody loves him. I think he's an integral part of the feeling between players in the squad. And I think he's even more important for that than he is for his ability to play on the left side of defense. In saying that, he's never really let the team down. I mean, he's not a world-class player, but he's an able backup. And we all know that Robbo is going to play 80% of the games if he's fit enough. And if he's not, Tsimikas has always come in and done a good job. I liked it recently. He was shoved into that inverted six. And I thought he did really, really well as well. I mean, he showed good energy in there. He was able to break up play. He was good with the triangular passes between, his players, and everything worked out really, really well. So he's versatile as well. Great attitude, great hair. What's not to like?
Yeah, like you touched on the point too. For me, the intangibles of what he brings to the team in the locker room and around the dressing room, I think those are huge. And it's obvious that a player like Adrian has lasted so long because of what he brings in harmony and energy. But I was always a huge fan of those types of players like Pepe Reina, or even for me, Oxlade-Chamberlain seemed like a kind of guy who could mingle with all the different cliques in the club and kind of bring in a light atmosphere. So combine that with a great squad player, I think it's a good thing to have him around. And until Robertson needs to be replaced, I don't see us really needing someone of a higher profile than Tsimikas to deputize.
Very quick question, Drew.
Position.
Sorry,
no,
Luke.
no, no,
Yeah, I was just going to say, it was Kev supposed to be here tonight, and probably he's out celebrating the deal, right?
I don't think Kev was supposed to be here tonight, but he probably is out celebrating, especially if he's not on that final.
He's not going to work tomorrow, is he?
Okay, this is an interesting question. I'll pull this one up when I could have saved it for the end. But Paul Endo asked, we are looking for a left-footed center back that can play left back as well. Why then do we need to give Kostas a long-term deal now? I wouldn't necessarily say long-term, 2027. I guess that covers, for me, 4 years. Guess that is long-term. But Lou, what do you think about Paul Lindo's question?
Well, we've never been. Obviously, Gomez is the exception, but I can't recall many times when we've had to play a centre back as a fullback. I think if we were looking for a left-footed centre back, I imagine it'd just be to play centre back. I might be wrong. I might be completely wrong, but someone who's solid as Kostas is now, who with an extended contract, you're going to get more money for him. I just don't see the point in getting rid of him. I do kind of understand that if we were looking for someone else, there'd be no point in extending the contract. But for right now, the left back position is probably the most secure position in the defence. For me, I mean, obviously Trent's always in the right back spot. There's always questions of the backup and his defensive ability. We had a discussion about the centre back role yesterday. I think left back is probably the one that you're the most adamant is reliable and concrete in that back line, I'd say. So I don't see that as the priority if we were looking for a new player to fill that role. I'd rather just keep the players we have who we know can do a job than bring in someone new who might not want to be a backup or might not be as good, and we won't realise until Robbo suffered a really bad injury and we have no choice but to play him. So I'd rather just keep Tsimikas, extend the contract, maybe get a bigger deal for him in the future if he is to leave, and then bring in an academy player or just someone younger in that role rather than try and get a left-footed centre-back to play there or another left-back. It just doesn't make sense for me.
Yeah, I agree with you there. And I'm not, with this following up on that question, I'm not sure if he did get a raise. The article I was reading just sounded like it was a extension. And if that's the case, I think he's only on like 60, 70 grand a week. So pretty bargain salary.
Throw it down, definitely.
Yeah. Dave, what do you think about the left center back? Do you think that comes into play, that we're wanting that and would we not need Tsimikas if we had someone who deputized? Maybe that takes away incentive for a potential left back coming to the club if there's less, less positions or less backup to contend with.
First point regarding the salary, I don't think it's really publicized much, especially at the lower levels. There might be for Mo, for example, or Trent because of all the hoo-ha and the world stardom, but someone like Tsimikas usually will fly under the radar in terms of the details of the contract. Will it detract? I don't think so. A left centre back's going to come in to play centre back, in my opinion. I mean, he could potentially go out there in an emergency situation, but he's being brought in to play in the centre of the park and possibly, maybe to go to 3 at the back as well, which is something I think Klopp has had his sort of eye on for a little while now, but he hasn't found the right person to slip in or to bring in, I should say. So there was a lot of rumours in the market over the summer. I don't think that was ever going to happen for budgetary reasons. However, I think it is a priority for Klopp in the next window or two, and I would be surprised if by the end of the next summer transfer window we wouldn't have a left centre back in. What does that mean for the others? We've got quite a few centre backs, and I like Kwanzaa very, very much. I think this kid's got a huge future ahead of him. He's very calm and controlled. He's not really put too much of a foot wrong since he's come in there. Then you've got Matip, who people have different opinions about, but then he was like a Rolls Royce on Sunday. This past Sunday, he was outstanding. So he still has the ability to do it. Consistency may be the problem there. So there's a lot of debate, and I don't think there's a real answer to the question. But I do think that a left centre back would come in. But then, do we offer any of our current centre backs new contracts? Question mark.
Very rare as well that you see a centre back go into the fullback position. As I said before, I think the one that instantly popped to mind was Nathan Ake at Man City. The way Pep moved him onto left back. Failing that, I mean, there's not many other times I can recall where Ben White as well, maybe for Arsenal. It's just not something that I think a lot of people have done successfully. So I think it's a gamble to put someone in a position where they might not be comfortable and they would rather be in the centre with maybe someone a bit closer to them rather than being all the way out. Centre backs tend to be a bit slower per se than full backs, so it might be a bit of a stereotype. But I think if you put someone out there who's not going to be very comfy, it just might flop catastrophically. And then the centre-back partnership of Van Dijk and Konate might be too good for them to then even get in the team there, and it might just cause a whole issue.
Last to end the issue of left backs and left centre backs, I'll give Dave a chance to answer this, but my quick thoughts before we go in it. We don't often play at 3 at the back at all. And even though we have the inverted right back sometime with Trent leaving, we still have Robertson fill in that gap. So I think he can fill that role if necessary. And I imagine Klopp, my personal opinion, would trust Robertson. Maybe he'd look longer term future. Maybe that's why that's in a future thoughts. But I don't think that issue comes up very often with how we play. But I'll let you answer that one, Dave.
Well, in my opinion, whether Klopp's tuned into this or not, whether it's his plan or not, I don't know. But I can see us, I think the best formation that we could possibly have is 3-5-2 with a diamond. That look, the most goals we ever scored when we had Trent and Robbo bombing all the time. Bombing. If you have 3 centre backs, they have that space to do so. Obviously, I like the diamond because you can put sort of that number 10 or false 9 in that position, and the other 2 strikers can sort of spread apart, and we can create all sorts of havoc there. So I could really see a potential change. I think this inverted situation is a temporary stopgap, in my opinion. Trent will either then go back to bombing down the right and using his amazing passing ability to throw long balls side to side, to bomb down and put in precision crosses, which he almost always does, to get himself in advanced roles because the boy can shoot as well. So I would see that as a possibility for the future. I think the inverted role is a bit of a stopgap because we don't have really 3 centre backs that we could count on week in, week out in a back 3, because playing a back 3 from a dynamic point of view is very different from playing 4-4-2 or even 4-3-3. So I would like to see that 3-5-2 with the diamond going on and see how that goes. We've got Gapco who can slip into that back role. Soboslai could play that top of the diamond role. We've got, McAllister could play either side of the diamond, and Soboslai can fit in. Curtis Jones can fit in. Harvey Elliott can fit in. So there's so many options. I'd like to see that. Whether that's on Klopp's mind, hard to say.
Okay. And we'll have that end the debate for the left backs situation for now. We'll move on to the next part of the news day, which is Joel Matip contract extension. So Football Insider article reported that discussions are not believed to be in an advanced stage yet, but his current contract runs until 2024, and he'll be open to reaching pre-contract agreement with foreign clubs in January. So this could be a period where we're looking to extend Matip's contract, but it's reported that he would have to be okay with playing a backup role or being okay with substitute roles. So a diminished role in the club. At the current moment, he's earning around 110 or 100 grand a week. So it's kind of at that tipping point for whether we extend him or we let him go. Where do you sit on that side of the debate, Lou? I'll have you answer that first.
I said on the stream yesterday, I like Matip. I think he's in this current team. The amount he's being rotated and the amount he'll often not play, so to speak, it does him well fitness-wise, because when he does play, he's incredible. I think when he was our starting centre-back, the injuries just kept piling up, and it was hampering his performance. I think that's why we went out and got a Konate and tried to improve on it. The only way he's going to fit in the team now, I think, is as a rotation player because of this. Whether he likes it or not, it's been 2 seasons now where he's not been the immediate starter. Obviously, I know Konate gets injured, but he must be somewhat comfortable with it. That being said, I think if a Saudi team comes in, it's a team where he's going to start more. He's going to play pretty much every game, despite the injury problems. They won't really care too much, I don't think. And he's going to be on much more money. And on top of that as well, he's good enough to get into most Premier League teams. I think if he went somewhere like an Aston Villa, you can't tell me that a Tyrone Mings is better. If he went to, I don't know, like a Brentford, you can't tell me that like Christopher Aye is better than him. He'd get into most teams. And I think the option's there. The only reason we'd have to extend it is if we need more depth in the centre-back role, or we're going to sell him for a fee because we don't want to lose him on a free transfer. I've got no issues with extending it. Whether we do or not, I'm leaning more towards the fact that we won't, because as I said yesterday, we saw many times last season, we were in contract talks with Firmino, we were in contract talks with Milner. Didn't happen because the club said no. What Klopp wants isn't always what Klopp gets. So it's a bit 50-50 at the moment. I'd love him to stay. I love Matip. I think he's a solid rotation player who can come in every now and then. But I just think if a Saudi team or another Premier League team comes in, offers him a bit more game time, way more money, especially the Saudi league, I don't see a world where he turns it down, especially with Van Dijk and Konate being who they are. He's not going to get into the starting lineup as much.
Yeah, that Saudi money has tempted a lot of players who aren't even at that stage in their career where they're thinking about retirement or winding things down. So it'd be a very tempting offer. But where do you sit on this one, Dave?
I like Matip a lot. I mean, I've enjoyed watching him all these years. I think he's had moments where he was quite rubbish, if I'm honest with you. And he's had moments where he's gliding through players, getting through the gaps, dribbling, setting up plays. Brilliant stuff. My only issue, and the only reason I wouldn't give him another contract, is because I think it hinders the development of this project overall. I think you've seen in the last few years that rotation has started first with the forward line, Nunez, Gakpo, Diaz, all coming in, and out with the old guys, Mane and Firmino. That transition has taken place. We've seen the revolution in midfield, where basically the whole midfield left and a new one came in. So that revolution has taken place. And by the way, big up to the transfer team, because the buys they did this summer were, for me, top class. Endo still remains to be seen, but those two specifically, McAllister and Szoboszlai, outstanding. I think it will hinder the progress of the project, because you do have to sort of, when you want to stay at the very, very top, you need to have players who are super fit, who are ready for the battle, especially the Premier League. We all know how difficult it is. And I think when you start, Matip's currently 32, 1 year he's 33. We see a lot of players, except for the freaks like Thiago Silva, somebody mentioned it in the chat. There are very few who can get to that level and stay at a high level. Even Van Dijk is on the downward spiral for sure. He's not the same player we saw 4 years ago. That's for me a certainty. So this transition needs to take place, and I think if we keep rewarding contracts to people like Matip, it would just be for loyalty and not for footballing reason. And I think that's a mistake. When they gave Henderson and Milner new contracts 2 years ago, whatever it was, that was, I think we all agree, that was a mistake. Was really a mistake. You can't be sentimental about these things, and I agree with the FSG model in the fact that if you no longer retain value and you can't give extreme value to the team on the pitch, you have to rotate these players out and bring in the new ones and get them working up to speed. So I will always be fond of Matip. I will always have a smile when I hear or see of him. That is for sure. But I think it would be a good thing for him to move on to new pastures, because Liverpool needs to be fighting at the top at all levels. And, in the Champions League, hopefully we get there again. In the Europa League, in the Premier League, you can't hold on to sentiment, because if you do, you end up finishing 5th.
I'll just ask a question, sorry. So if obviously... Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. What you're saying on there, about the Henderson contract and the Milner contract? Say we just go into this summer just gone. Is there not a world where you thought, right, I know James Milner's not, the best player ever, but would you not want that leadership in the team to sort of integrate the new players in? I mean, is there a world where keeping Joel Matip helps these younger players sort of develop? Someone who's been there, done that. Is there a world where that sort of benefits the younger players in a way?
I think you've got young leaders in the team now. I think Trent is an example. He's a young leader. Everybody knows his ability and he's world class. So players who come in, they will aspire to that level. He will, obviously, being a local lad, he will help them develop into the team, into the environment surrounding them. Curtis Jones is another example. Fair enough, on the pitch, he doesn't set any fires, but he does a solid job. I think this balance between age and seniority, I think it's a bit overrated, because these two players came in, they're young, and they've just hit the ground running. It doesn't look like anybody's struggling for direction. It looks like they're all on the same path, they're all going in the same direction, and they're all new. So I think that that theory has actually been disproven.
Not with Chelsea. I mean, all the young ones they've got,
yeah.
Obviously, they've brought in a million young players, and it shows that having that experienced and older mentality, so to speak, is beneficial to this group of younger players. So I think you are right in what you're saying, that it is a bit overrated, but I do think at times it can be very beneficial if there's a lot of young players coming in.
I think Chelsea's a different story, because the problem is at the top. The strategy is wrong.
Yeah.
The board has no idea what they're doing. Let's be honest about it. You know what I mean? I feel sorry for Pochettino, because he's coming. I think I like him as a manager, and he's come into an absolute disaster at Chelsea. They've spent 100 million on Mudryk, who hasn't shown a darn thing so far. Caicedo, is he worth 115 million? Not by a country mile. I was actually disappointed when Liverpool offered that much for him, because he's just not worth it. There are certain players that are worth it, but he's not worth it. So I think Chelsea is a completely different story altogether, because like United, the problems are at the top, and everything, any good business, any good company, any good sports franchise, you have to have the top solid, and then everything dribbles down from there. If that top is not solid, you can forget it.
All right, let's move on to the final topic of the stream, which is Trent Alexander-Arnold's deal getting close. So it's reported that they're in conversations, advanced conversations. We'll see when or if that breaks through, but can't imagine Trent Alexander-Arnold leaving at this stage or anything breaking down in a negative way. But yeah, it is another article from Football Insider that states that contracts are advanced and a new deal has been agreed in principle. The right back is the new vice captain at Anfield and is set to join the topper echelons of the salary pyramid at Liverpool. So currently, right now, he's on 180,000 a week, and his contract expires in 2025. So the top dog is obviously Mo Salah at $350,000 a week. Next tier is kind of Virgil van Dijk and Thiago. Virgil van Dijk's at 220,000 a week, and Thiago's at 200,000 a week. Do you guys think that, or we'll start with you, Lou? Do you think that Trent? Well, obviously 2025 is coming around the corner, so contract certainly seems in order. But do you think he deserves that bump up to the upper echelons of 200,000 or more?
Oh yeah, definitely. I love Trent. I'm not oblivious or blind to the fact that he does have a mistake in him. He's not the best. He's a good defender. He's not a world class defender. But I think what he offers you now, especially as vice captain, is like Dave said, he's already a leader. He's someone that we need to sort of integrate these new players in, and to get everyone. I think he gets people playing the Liverpool way. I think he's a very good representation of the city. I think the way he plays, he's confident. He's not afraid to get stuck in. He's got an affection, obviously, with the fans and with the club. And it's a good thing having him around. I think what he does on the ball, the passes he can make, the way he plays, that he wears his heart on his sleeve. He's very much he's a generational talent in a way, because I think it's very rare that you can see players play the way that he does, the way he can pass, as I said. And I think the pay increase was always going to come. That Liverpool seemed to be building him up to be the next Steven Gerrard, so to speak, in terms of the captaincy, giving it to a Scouse lad who's going to take over when Van Dijk eventually starts to wind down or does wind down fully. Keeping him around necessary. I think you're not going to find a right back out there who can do what Trent does, who has the story that Trent has. With Steven Gerrard even saying in the academy, look, he's going to be a brilliant player who can play a magnitude of different positions with this, obviously, the inverted fullback now that he's doing. And it's clear that Klopp's seen something in him from when he was younger, and I think he's only going to get better and better as he gets older. As I say, he does have a mistake in him, but you can clearly see what he means to the team. And as I say, anyone coming in who wants to get an appreciation for not just the club, but the city as a whole, it's so important to have as many people, similar to Curtis Jones, who can bring them into that and get them playing the way that we want them to play and how we know the fans would appreciate them playing, which is full of heart, full of loyalty, full of character, getting stuck in. He's incredible on the pitch. He's incredible off the pitch. Losing him should never be on the agenda. He should be around for as long as possible, and we should be, as I said, looking to turn him into the next leader of this team with the ability he's got.
Yeah, I agree. He's definitely, I think, Mr. Liverpool after Steven Gerrard exited the club, and embodies so much of what the support base and the city means. And no qualms on that. I think the interesting debate is the upper echelons and the wage structure of the team. I'll pass this question on to you, Dave. But for example, Jota and Nunez are also on 180,000 a week. Alexis McAllister is on 150. So is Ryan Gravenberch. Then you have guys like Matip down at 100 grand. Do you think players like Jota, Nunez, McAllister, I guess less so McAllister and Gravenberch, obviously, since they just came to the club, but Szoboszlai is even down further than that. I think he's on like 130 or around there. Do you think Trent getting bumped up to 200,000 or more offsets the wage structure? Do you think that's an issue at all in extending his
No,
contract?
no, in my opinion, no. I mean, Liverpool as a football club, if it wants to remain competitive, has to grow with the market. That's for sure, and that includes salaries. Um, I think Trent, I mean, if you're looking at the players that you described who are on 180, I think Trent should be on around the 300 mark, in my opinion. I think he's good value for that. I think if Real Madrid snapped him up, he'd probably be on 450, 500 a month, a week, sorry. And if Saudi went from Jesus, he'd be earning a castle every week. So yeah, no, I have no problem with it whatsoever. What I wouldn't like to see is Liverpool taking advantage of the fact that he's a local lad and they know he wants to stay. I think they should offer up front, hey, Trent, amazing. If you look at him ability wise, in comparison to not just the Premier League, but European football, for me, ability wise, he's right up there near the top. He's right up near the top. I've not seen a player in a long, long time with the ability that this boy has. And when I've always really taken a hard stance against Liverpool fans or pundits in general who gave him stick for his defensive duties. He wasn't supposed to be defending. That's the whole point. He was supposed to be bombing down and putting in passes. It was supposed to be Fabinho who was fitting into that spot when we lost control of the ball. So all this, Gary Neville, for example, someone needs to go at that guy with an ice pick, because I'm telling you, sometimes it does my head in what he says. Sometimes he says completely interesting and brilliant stuff, and then the other times it's like diarrhea. I don't know. I can't stand listening to the guy. But he's a case in point of this stupid argument about Trent and not understanding the system that we play. And you think from an ex-football man, he'd understand. So no, Trent's not supposed to be a defender. He's either a defender he's either attacking defender, or in my opinion, he should be slipped into midfield. I'm surprised it wasn't done by now, possibly because with regards to the transition of the defense, he needs to spend another year or two in that role. But I think he's wasted there, to be honest, with his ability. I see him doing really well in the six. Some people might shoot me down with this, but when the few times I've seen him play it, and even England level, he closes space really quick. He drops into position really quick when they're out of possession, and he's got the vision of the whole field in front of him at that position. He can just ping it anywhere. He can have loads of fun in that role. He's been a defender for the last 5-6 seasons. He knows how to defend. In Klopp's system, it wasn't his job to defend. It was the job of the defensive midfield. So I think he should be in midfield. That is his future. But I also understand why he isn't there yet. And I would be surprised if in the next year or two, he's in the midfield and this inverted six is just a stopgap.
Well, you made an interesting point there when you were saying that obviously people give him grief for his defensive duties and such, but or not, but even I agree. I think, which part of the pitch are you more likely to have quick players running at you? It's going to be on the wing. And that's when Trent seems to have his mistakes, when fast players are running at him. He can get caught out at times. In the middle of the park with all these other midfielders around him who have so much energy and ability to win the ball back, like a McAllister, like a Gravenberch, like an Endo, he'd have that extra bit of protection, which he had like when Wijnaldum was there. So I completely agree. I think if he was in the middle of the park, the defensive frailties wouldn't be as obvious. He's not having one-on-one situations or wingers who are cutting inside while fullbacks are going on the other side of him. He won't get as caught out, I think. And, he could play that sort of Pirlo role. He could be a deep line playmaker who's not there to defend. He's got other people around him to do that, who their job's to win the ball, his job's to ping it over the top, stay back and create for other players, rather than expecting the world when, say, a Doku or a Ronaldo, very different players, I know, it's just the first ones, a Doku or a Ronaldo or, an Mbappe or someone's running at him, he'd be better with those extra defensive players around him who give him the time and freedom to express how he wants to play and put the passes in that we know he can do.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that completely. I think when you're talking about fast wingers bombing down, Mo Salah, Doku, we could name 20 or 30 of them.
Yeah.
They need to be double teamed. It's not the role of one person. No,
Yeah.
no one person
Yeah.
can do it. It's almost impossible. Sure, they might get a lucky block in from time to time, but these guys are skilled. They've got quick feet. They've got pace. If for one person, it's impossible. I've never seen, for example, someone like Mo. Whenever he's one on one, he wins.
Yeah.
When there's two of them, he struggles a bit more, but he still finds a way, which is what makes Mo, the brilliance of his mind. But it's a two-man job on these players, and you have to be intelligent that if you are putting a defensive situation where there are two people on an attacking winger, then you're making sure you are covering the other spaces that you've left open, and that's obviously always the tricky thing. But that's why it takes flexibility and obviously players who can move around the pitch and understand the different roles. But yeah. I think great points, Lou. I agree with you totally. Yeah.
All right. I think we're all in agreement about Trent Alexander-Arnold and his value to the team. It'll be exciting to see how he moves forward and whether Klopp transitions him into the midfield. But we're going to wrap up the stream soon. But if you want to get in questions now, I've started a few and I'll bring those up in a second. But while I'm giving you time to ask questions, Lou was talking to us before the stream about Klopp's comments on Endo post-match press conference, where Klopp was quoted saying that he doesn't view Endo as a midfielder in terms of a short-term project. He believes he'll play a big role in the team, is very important to the team moving forward, and it's just taking time to get him settled in. So I'll start with Lou on this while you guys get your questions in. How do you view Endo? How do you view his role and his contribution for the team in this season and then in seasons moving forward?
I feel like this episode should be called like the leadership episode or something. But he's the captain of Japan. I'll be honest, he's one. I think I'm in the majority of people here when I say I didn't know a lot about Endo before he joined. He was so out of nowhere. I'd heard bits because obviously, I watched the Bundesliga. You hear little bits. From what you see, he wins. For Stuttgart, he won the most balls from the air, most aerial duels won. I think it was the most tackles, the most distance, I think, covered by their midfield. So he's clearly got Klopp levels of energy. He obviously sees something in him to fit the system. I think when Fabinho come in, not a lot of people thought that he was going to do brilliant, and it took time for him to sort of fit the mold. With regards to the short-term project, I mean, you look at footballers nowadays, it's not like years ago, they weren't going out on the piss like the night before games. They're not smoking. They're athletes now. They're not footballers. So 30 now is like 25, 26 sometimes. It depends on the player. And he looks like he's a professional. The way he acts and he treats himself from what we've seen so far, he's very professional in all those senses. For depth, there's no downside really. It's more players in the midfield, bit of extra competition for say Bajcetic, who, this person comes in who was the star player who would have got into most Bundesliga teams, the Japanese national team captain. There's no downside personally to it. Long-term project maybe, but that might have a bit of hindrance to some of the younger players wanting to get in. I'm not sure about that too much, but no, it'll just take a bit of time. I do expect them to play more of the rotation games like the Carabao Cup, the FA Cup, the Europa League. But if it works, then brilliant. We've got our brick wall defensive midfielder. If it doesn't, 20 million, sell them on in the future or let them go when the contract expires. It's a gamble, but I'd rather take a £20 million gamble on an Endo than a £115 million gamble on a Caicedo. Because even now, Endo's done better than Caicedo. And, I'm happy with the way things went personally.
Yeah, Dave, your thoughts on Endo? I believe Jay Muse quoted you as saying still willing to be patient on Endo. Do you see him as are like maybe making the claim on that number 6 and making it a short-term season, maybe this season, maybe the next couple seasons, making that his spot, or do you see his role being more of a supportive role and rotational player?
That's a good question. No, I see him getting every opportunity to prove himself as a player who can cement a spot in that role. I think we still fail to understand or identify sometimes how difficult it is to transition from any other league to the Premier League. It is a completely different beast altogether. The play is maybe 20% faster than any other league in the world. The physicality is, I mean, when you see players like Mo using his physicality, I mean, in Italy, he would just run over people. I'm telling you, 100%. So it's hard, and very few players come in and actually hit the ground running. It takes time. Luis Diaz is an exception to the rule. Szoboszlai is an exception to the rule. McAllister was already playing in the Premier League. But you can look over many examples of players and in years gone by who have taken a great amount of time, sometimes even a whole season, just to get up to speed with the Premier League. So I'm more than happy to give him time. I think Jay Muse probably heard me a couple of streams ago where I said that when I did my research, when I started trying to understand who Endo is, the respect and the positive feedback surrounding him in his career so far, as it's top notch. I mean, he is loved, he is respected. So I don't see any reason why we shouldn't do that until he gives us a reason otherwise to do so. So I think we've just got to give him time. He was never going to come in and in the first couple of games smash it, because first of all, he's playing a really difficult role. It's a difficult position, number 6. It's a very difficult position. And you can tell right now he is just not up to speed. Everything is happening a bit too fast for him. So he needs time. He needs game time. In short spells, I think. I think you should have a number of substitute appearances, maybe coming on around, perhaps when we have a 1 or 2 goal lead, coming in around that 60, 70-minute mark to shore things up. And at that stage, when you are 2-0 up, for example, the whole team is going to be in defensive mode. So he'll have that support as well of the team being more in defensive mode, which will help him. I think he can find a place in the team. It's a risk. I think what Lou said was spot on too. It's always going to be a risk, but at 20 million in today's day and age, it's not much of a risk, really and truly. I mean, these clubs spend 20 million in the course of a few days. I think if you have to look at the statements, it's not much money in today's footballing world. So I am more than happy to take that risk and give him as much time as he needs, even up to a season.
Yeah, completely agree.
All right, and a few starred messages I've had. I'll actually throw this one back to you, Dave, because Lou mentioned this briefly in his addressing of the Endo question. So Paul Endo asked how the midfield transformation is looking. Do you think Klopp is glad we didn't get Caicedo for 110 mil?
I remember going back to the press conference, the first press conference that Klopp did once the news broke about the offer being accepted by Brighton. And he did not look happy at all that this deal was going to happen. So I don't know what happened behind the scenes there. But even when he said, yeah, I can say something, yeah, okay, yes, that has happened, he looked like he really was angry and mad at the whole overall situation. So I think we dodged a massive bullet. I mean, he's a decent player. I think he'll find his legs at Chelsea, given some time and, whatever. But I just, he's nowhere near 115 million. I think the original price they were talking about between 45 and 60 was still at the top end, but maybe worth a gamble. 115 million, no way. And if you look at what we've done and how our midfield has been transformed with the money that would have been used for Caicedo, I think nobody can argue that we got the better situation overall.
Yeah, I completely agree. And just to wrap things up, we have Leicester on Wednesday in the League Cup. Do you think with the squad that we have now, Lou, we should really see our teams or our team advancing to the later stages in all competitions, or how do you see us approaching these competitions like the Carabao Cup and FA Cup?
I think we have a better squad now than we did 2 seasons ago. And 2 seasons ago, we got to the end stage of every single competition. So there's no reason why we realistically couldn't do the same thing. Yes, there's Thursday in Europa League and then the league, and that has a bit of an effect. We have a team more than capable. We saw against West Ham, the front line comes off pretty much apart from Salah. Well, the front line comes off, and then Jota comes on. Jota scores. You take off Szoboszlai and McAllister, you bring Harvey Elliott on, he scores against Wolves. So, we definitely have depth and capable players. I'm very much, I know it sounds like I'm a glass half empty kind of fan. I'm very much I look at games, I don't look at every single one going, we're going to smash them, we're going to smash them. Leicester are hard, and I know they've been relegated, and I know that they're a different team now, but you look at the way they're playing in the Championship and you think, I don't know how they necessarily went down. They've got a good manager now who worked under Pep, so the way they're playing is eerily similar at times. The players they've got, they're still a goal-scoring threat. They're still a solid team. And the Championship's not a walkover league. It's hard. Like, it's harder than a lot of leagues in the world. And Leicester, I think we'll be up for this because I think they've got a point to prove of we're playing a Premier League side. We have to prove that when we come up next season, which I think we will, we are capable of staying in the league. And they almost beat us last season. Not last season, sorry, the season before. So they can definitely do it. Like I said, I do think we have a squad capable. Depends what team we play in what competition. Leicester, we should be playing more of the players that are used to the Premier League as opposed to maybe Endo or maybe Kwanzaa, stuff like that. We should be playing a strong team against them and just really go for it. But yeah, definitely have a team capable.
And Dave, do you think Klopp is going to take these competitions seriously, or do you think with how we're shaping up in the Premier League, or at least starting the Premier League, do you think he's going to put the Premier League and possibly the Europa League as the main 2 targets and let these kind of Carabao and FA Cup competitions off to the side and take it if we do and not really care if we don't?
No, I think he'll go for it, and he's got the what's the word? I think he wants to win the Europa League because we've never won it, and I think he just wants to sort of keep things ticking along. A Carabao Cup win, I'd still view that as a good season. Obviously, providing we finish at a decent spot in the league.
Dave?
I think any fan, any coach, any part of a football structure will obviously prioritize which trophies are the most important. But I don't believe Klopp would go into any match thinking about anything other than a win. I don't think it can be possibly in his mentality. I think he sees the opportunity to be able to give squad players their time on the pitch, which they deserve. So I think he sees that. But for me on Wednesday, it's going to be all about getting the balance right. Okay. So the balance between players who are up to speed, players not so up to speed, juniors, youth players coming through, whatever. So I think Diaz needs a rest. I think I would give Mo a rest, although he won't want that. So, but I think he need a rest. I reckon Jota should be in from as a striker. I'd like to see Gakpo on the left. To be honest, I think it suits him much more than being a striker, in my opinion. The couple of times the few times that I saw him in his previous role at Ajax, and then a few times with Bayern, he was. Wait, hang on a second. I'm getting the wrong player here. Where was Gakpo before? He was at Ajax, right? I've lost the plot.
Gakpo was at PSV.
PSV, thank you. So the times that I saw him play, even in international level, it was on the left. Then he moved to even striker for the national team. But he scored that goal. Was it against Man? It was against Man United where he cut in, I think, and just took the goal so wonderfully. And you can tell that's where his strength lies. He's good in the pocket too because he can turn and drive. But the guy can score goals. So I'd like to see him given that chance on the left and take it from there. I think Jota is much better in a striker role, especially with his heading ability. I think he needs to be in and around the box. So I would like to see that. I wouldn't even mind seeing Harvey Elliott in a front three on the right. I mean, honestly, I know he's got good creativity, but it doesn't mean that every member of the front three has to be in the box at all times. A lot of players can spend time maybe 15 meters back and work things around and then maybe put in a final ball. So I'd like to see that. I think Bajcetic needs to start now. I think he's got a couple of runouts. I think he needs to get his legs going now. So I'd like to see him. Curtis Jones needs a rest for sure. So it's that mixture of youth. And in the back line, I think Van Dijk should play, and I'll tell you why, because he spent a few weeks out. So he needs to get his legs back up to speed. I don't think they were up to speed at the weekend against West Ham. You could see where there was that ball where he called Alisson to come and get, which was a huge mistake. It was because he couldn't see his legs getting there. So thankfully I think it was Robbo at the time to mop up. But I wouldn't mind seeing him getting some more legs, and I wouldn't mind seeing him with someone like Kwanzaa, if I'm honest. I mean, I think this kid can play. Maybe I'm being slightly too optimistic and my glass is half full, but I've not seen really much wrong from the kid, honestly, and I think he could learn from Van Dijk. One issue possibly could be that they both seem to be very relaxed. They're very calm and very relaxed. Maybe having someone with a bit more tension might be a good idea. But yeah, rotation definitely. Balance is needed, so it needs to be done intelligently, because as we know, in any cup in the UK, if you don't get it spot on, you're out. So I think they really need to make sure they're taking it seriously and get the right balance in the team for Wednesday.
Yeah, well, agree with that completely. And as Lou said before, we definitely have a ridiculous squad depth. I'd agree with him saying too, like almost better than 2 years ago, in my opinion, when we went for all 4 competitions to the final days. But Leicester was one of those teams that gave us quite the scare in the I believe it was the Carabao Cup again too.
Minamino,
went down to penalties. Yeah, Minamino in the glory days. But that about does it for us here at LFC Transfer Room. We really appreciate everyone chiming in with the comments, the viewership, and I will say again, as always, because Charlie will be poking me after the stream that I didn't say it enough, but please like and subscribe if you've enjoyed the stream. We really appreciate everyone in this community. And on a slow news day, I think we've had some fun, and really big thanks to Lou and Dave who joined us, and we're all wishing you a happy day, happy week, and hopefully a win against Leicester on Wednesday. Thanks for watching.